With Me, episode number 6. Now you might have noticed that the name of this series has changed slightly, and that's all thanks to the lovely Bareface, who came up with this brilliantly punny name. Today I'm going to be showing you how to make your own graphic t-shirts just like these. Now I know that many of you will be going, well yeah, just use transfer paper and stick it on a shirt. And well, I thought the same thing when I uploaded this video and got loads and loads of requests on how to make the t-shirts that I was wearing. But then I thought, I've been making these shirts since I was 15 and it's not actually all that straightforward if you've never done it before. And during that time I've picked up a lot of tips and tricks, like what brand of transfers do you use, what kind of image should you be looking for, and even like how do these things hold up in the wash. I've also learned that you don't have to just print these things on t-shirts. So without further ado, let's get started. Now when you're looking for an image to print out onto a t-shirt, it needs to have a couple of important qualities. It needs to be large and high resolution, it can't be blurry or pixelated, and it's best if you find an image with a white or a clear background, and the image itself should have simple edges. So I'm using a website called Graphic Stock to search for my images. Because you can use Graphic Stock totally for free for a 7-day trial, and there's a huge royalty-free library of images that are perfect for printing onto t-shirts. And just so you all know, Graphic Stock are sponsoring this video. So of course there is Google Images, but when you're looking for images on Google, you can run into a few problems. One is that the images just often aren't big enough, or the images you find are pixelated or blurry, or they have these annoying watermarks stamped across them. And the images you'll find on Google Images are usually copyrighted, so you really shouldn't be using them to make things like t-shirts with. So if you want to use this site, I highly recommend it. And all the images I'm going to be using for this tutorial will mainly be from Graphic Stock. And I'll include the links to those images and a link that you can click for a 7-day free trial with Graphic Stock in the description box below. So to find images that I wanted to use, I basically just typed in things that I like puppies, cookies, banana. And I don't know if you guys have also noticed this lately, but things like milk and eggs also seem to be a recurring theme in fashion lately. So I also found myself some fried eggs, because why not? Now, once you've found an image, you can simply save it, print it out, or what I like to do, copy and paste it into a Word document along with a whole lot of other images that you also want to print out onto t-shirts so that you're not wasting valuable transfer paper. Or if you've got some Photoshop skills, you can download an image and then build upon it to make your own graphic, just like this. Yeah, I hate me too. But I also love puns, so I'm not apologizing. So for this step, you'll need both a printer and printable transfer paper. Now there's a lot of difference in quality between different brands of transfer paper. I'm actually going to be trying out both a cheap brand and an expensive brand and comparing the two so you can see how both perform. So there is a lot of difference in price right there. So what I wanted to find out is, are the expensive brands worth it? So usually your transfer paper will be either for dark colored t-shirts or light colored t-shirts, so make sure you're getting the right one for the color t-shirt that you're going to be printing on. But I have found that dark colored transfer papers work fine on light colored t-shirts, whereas light colored transfer papers never work on dark color ones. So you're better off just buying a pack that is just for dark colored t-shirts, and you can use them on white, gray, blue, any color t-shirts. So with the cheap brand, it's really hard to tell which side you're supposed to print out on. The instructions are also a bit vague and confusing. So with these ones, because it's for a light colored t-shirt, I'm supposed to print everything out backwards. So make sure you check how you're supposed to print things out first. But they seem to print out fine. With the expensive brand, it was easy to tell what side to print onto. And I think that the colors turned out a lot brighter and that the images look a little bit crisper. But there's still not too much difference between the cheap and expensive brands at this point. After you've printed out your images, you'll need to cut them out. This is why you don't want any images with too complicated an edge. Don't leave any white margins around the images, because unless you're using a white t-shirt, the white margins will be visible on your shirt. Now when you're choosing a t-shirt to use, you should look for ones that are as close to 100% cotton as possible. So I thrifted myself a whole bunch of t-shirts to use for this tutorial. And I tried to find shirts that were around 95 to 97% cotton. And you don't have to just use t-shirts. I'm also going to try transferring my images onto this cute pinafore. And in the past, I've also used them to put pockets onto a dress. So these instructions are going to differ a little bit depending on what brand that you have, so make sure you read your own instructions. First, I switched my iron onto maximum cotton setting, and I made sure that it was set to dry, i.e. no steam was being made. And rather than using an ironing board, it's better to get something hard like a plank of wood and place a pillowcase or a sheet over the top of it. With the cheap brand of transfers, I had to place them face down onto my shirt and then iron over it for about a minute, while pressing down on the shirt with a lot of pressure. And it ended up looking like this. Also, because I'm transferring this one onto a white t-shirt, I didn't have to cut out the white background. With the expensive brand of transfers, the instructions got me to first peel the image off the backing paper and then place it down onto a pre-ironed t-shirt, and then iron over it for about 50 seconds, again using a lot of pressure. And I repeated this for all of my different images, and so in the end, I made a whole bunch of different t-shirts. I've got a puppy, a spaceship, a banana, I did a sunflower on the pinafore, and a fried egg. And although this craft project seems relatively easy, don't be too mad at yourself if you screw up, because in the course of filming this video, I managed to screw up at least twice. Oh, so apparently I forgot to remove the backing paper, and it's turned into molten goop. Oh good, so that's upside down. And expensive brands has to be that the expensive brand does look brighter, more pigmented, and more colourful than the cheap brand does. But compared to the expensive brand and for the price, the cheap brand is really not all that bad. Okay, so step 6 is the wash and duration test. How do these shirts hold up over time? When you're washing a t-shirt that you've printed onto, you should always turn it inside out before washing and only ever wash it in cold water. So straight up, what I've noticed. The cheap brand's light t-shirt transfers did really badly. The transfer has already begun bubbling up and peeling off, and they're not even really wearable anymore. So that was disappointing. However, the cheap brand's dark t-shirt transfers did a lot better. This Dalmatian puppy has held up really well. It's still perfectly wearable, apart from some minor cracking of the print. And how about the expensive brand? Well, as expected, it washed really well. They look basically the exact same as they did before I put them in the washing machine, which is what you want, especially if you're paying a couple of dollars for each transfer. So these are some transfers that I've had for a couple of months. On these t-shirts, I used the cheap brand. And after a couple of months and a couple of washes, they're looking a little bit worse for wear. Still perfectly wearable, but they don't look so great close up, especially if you're stretching the print over something like boobs. Whereas the pockets on this dress were done using the expensive brand of transfer paper. And they've held up really well, they still look really bright, they haven't really peeled or cracked at all. So if you want long-lasting prints on your t-shirts, it's probably a good idea to invest in the more expensive brands. But if it's just for a cosplay or a costume or something that you're not gonna wear very much, then a cheap brand works just fine. So I hope this video was helpful. If you do have any more tips that you want to add, then please feel free to leave them in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching, liking, and subscribing, and I'll see you all next time. Bye! And thanks once again to Graphic Stock for sponsoring this video. If you'd like a 7-day trial, free access to a huge library of royalty-free images, check out the link that I've popped in the description box below.